You didn't do it. You know you didn't do it. There's no evidence, no accusation, no witness, and yet somewhere in your chest, right now, there is a feeling that quietly insists you are to blame. Maybe someone in your family is upset and you're not sure why. Maybe a friend left a message you haven't replied to. Maybe there's just a low hum of wrongness you can't locate, like a smoke detector in a house where nothing is burning. That feeling is guilt. And the strangest part is, you don't know what you did. For decades, psychologists assumed guilt was simple. You do something bad, you feel bad. The end. It was treated as a reactive emotion, a consequence, a punishment your own mind handed you for breaking a rule. But that explanation falls apart the moment you sit with your own experience. Because the guilt you feel, most often, isn't attached to anything you actually did. It surfaces when a friend seems distant, when you leave a party early, when you take a day off work, when you simply exist in someone else's pain, without being able to fix it. So, what is really happening? The answer begins around 2 million years ago, and it doesn't start with morality. It starts with survival. Your ancestors didn't live alone. They couldn't. A single human on the African savanna was a dead human. Survival required a group, and belonging to that group was the most important thing your body could accomplish on any given day. Not finding food, not outrunning predators, belonging. Because if you were cast out, you died. It wasn't a metaphor, it was a biological fact. And so your nervous system evolved one job above all others: do not get kicked out. The psychologist Brock Bastian at the University of Melbourne has spent years studying the social functions of negative emotions, and what he and others have found is that guilt is not primarily a punishment. It is a signal. Your body produces it before you've done anything wrong, the moment it detects even the smallest risk that you're standing in a group might be falling. Think about that for a moment. Guilt as a risk detector. Not a rearview mirror, but a radar. The hum you feel when your friend seems quiet. The tightness when your boss doesn't reply to your email. The low-grade discomfort you can't explain when someone around you is suffering. Your brain is running calculations it inherited from 2 million years of social survival, and it is flagging a potential threat to your position in the group before anything has actually gone wrong. This is why you can feel guilty for things you definitely didn't cause. Researcher June Price Tangney, one of the most cited voices in the psychology of shame and guilt, describes guilt as a fundamentally other-oriented emotion. Unlike shame, which collapses inward and says, "I am bad," guilt reaches outward and says, "You are harmed." It is designed to make you care about the well-being of the people around you. And from an evolutionary standpoint, that care was priceless. A group where every member felt the discomfort of others would be a more cooperative group. A more cooperative group would share food more reliably, defend together more effectively, raise children with more support. The individuals in that group would pass on more of their genes. Your guilt, even the guilt you feel right now for nothing in particular, is the inheritance of every ancestor who survived because they could feel what others needed. But here's where it gets stranger. Your brain cannot always tell the difference between a real social threat and an imagined one. This is not a flaw, it's a feature. In a world where being excluded meant death, it was better to feel guilty 10 times over nothing than to miss one real threat to your place in the group. The cost of a false alarm was a few hours of uncomfortable feeling. The cost of missing a real signal could be your life. So your nervous system is calibrated toward oversensitivity. It would rather accuse you unjustly than let a real social wound go unnoticed. Researchers Jonathan Turner and Jan Stetz have described this as the emotional amplification system of social animals. Your brain doesn't just respond to social threats, it anticipates them, patterns, matches for them, and in moments of ambiguity, defaults to the assumption that you are the problem. And then modern life made everything worse. For most of human history, your social group was small, 30 to 150 people. You knew everyone's face. You could read every room. You could tell within hours whether something was genuinely wrong or whether you were misreading a tired friend. Now you exist in a world of hundreds of relationships, most of them conducted through text. No tone of voice, no facial expression, no body language, just words on a screen that your ancient nervous system is desperately trying to decode. Your friend hasn't texted back in 2 days. Is she busy? Is she upset? Are you the reason? Your brain doesn't know. It cannot know. So, it does what evolution built it to do. It assumes risk. It generates guilt. It tells you to fix something, even though there may be nothing broken. This is why the modern world is producing what some researchers call free-floating guilt, a kind of diffuse moral discomfort that isn't attached to any specific action. Martin Hoffman, a developmental psychologist who studied empathy and guilt across decades, found that as people develop more sophisticated social awareness, their capacity for anticipatory guilt also grows. You don't just feel bad about what you did, you feel bad about what you might have caused, what you could have prevented, what someone else is experiencing right now that you didn't stop. And the more interconnected your social world becomes, the more inputs your guilt radar has to misread. Your phone makes this worse. Every notification is a potential social evaluation. Every seen and not replied message is a moment your nervous system flags as dangerous. You are running 2-million-year-old social survival software on hardware that was never designed for it, and the result is a background static of guilt that hums through your modern life like a signal looking for a source. But there's something else happening underneath all of this, something that researchers in moral psychology have only recently begun to pull apart. Guilt, it turns out, is deeply tied to identity. Carolyn Zahn Waxler, a developmental psychologist at the National Institute of Mental Health, spent years studying how children begin to experience guilt and found something remarkable. Children as young as 2 years old feel distress when a caregiver is hurt or upset, even if the child had nothing to do with it. Not because they've been taught to feel responsible, but because their nervous system reads another person's pain as a social event requiring a response. This is the very beginning of conscience. And it predates language, predates moral instruction, predates any understanding of cause and effect. Your guilt, at its deepest level, is a reflex. It is your body's way of saying, someone in your world is not okay, and your social survival depends on noticing that. This is also why guilt is so difficult to think your way out of. You can tell yourself you did nothing wrong. You can reason through the evidence. You can arrive logically at your own innocence. And the feeling remains, because it was never a logical conclusion. It was a biological alarm. The alarm doesn't care about your reasoning. It only cares whether the threat has passed, and the threat it's responding to isn't something you did. It's something your body detected, a shift in emotional temperature, a silence where there used to be warmth, a change in someone's face you may not have consciously registered. So, what do you do with this? The first step, according to researchers like Bastian and Tangney, is recognizing that guilt is information, not verdict. It is your nervous system pointing at something worth paying attention to, not declaring you guilty of a crime. The question isn't whether you deserve to feel it. The question is what it's pointing at. Sometimes it's pointing at a real thing, a relationship that needs tending, a conversation you've been avoiding. A way you've been showing up that doesn't match who you want to be. But sometimes it's pointing at nothing except the ambient risk your ancient brain detects in simply being close to other people. And in that case, the most useful thing you can do is name it. Say to yourself, this is my nervous system doing its job. It is trying to protect my belonging. There is no court case here. There is only an old alarm, still set to a frequency the modern world no longer requires. Because here is the strange comfort in all of this. The fact that you feel guilty, even for nothing, means you care. It means your social radar is working. It means your nervous system is doing exactly what 2 million years of selection built it to do. Keep you attuned to the people around you, keep you scanning for ruptures, keep you oriented toward repair. The guilt you feel for nothing is the exact same mechanism that would drive you to apologize sincerely, to sit with a grieving friend, to show up when it's inconvenient because someone you love needs you there. And tonight, when you catch yourself feeling that low hum of wrongness for no clear reason, when the guilt surfaces without a source and lingers without a verdict, you'll know what's really happening. Your ancient body is doing what it always did. It is listening for the sounds of the group. It is making sure you still belong. That's not a flaw. That's the oldest care you carry. If this hits something you recognize, drop a comment below. And if you know someone who carries guilt they can't explain, send this to them. It might be exactly what they need to hear.